Welcome to The Gap, where it's our mission to bridge the gap between javelin and baseball training styles.
I'm Brett Hart, coach at Grind Athlete Performance and founder of Hitman Performance.
I'm Dan Labadia, javelin coach at Southern Connecticut State University and the man behind Jacked Javelin.
Hope you guys enjoy the show.
All right, so welcome to this episode of The Gap. Today we have a very special guest, Kara Winger. Kara Winger is the U.S. record holder at 68-11, 9-time U.S. champion, number 12 women all-time in world history. So thank you for joining us today. How are you doing?
I'm great. I'm honored to be the first woman on the Gap podcast. Pumped about it.
Hey, let's go.
This is right, yeah. You're the first woman on the show. I didn't even realize. Yeah. Congratulations.
Oh, thank you.
She did her research.
Yeah.
I like to know the audience I'm speaking to, so yes, I'm here to be as bro as I can as your first woman guest.
Sweet. Love to hear it. So, with this being The Gap, Brett takes over the baseball role, I take over the javelin role, and we are working together to bridge the gap between javelin and baseball, strength and conditioning styles. So tell us a little bit about yourself. Have you had any experience with baseball or softball, and how did that correlate to javelin?
I do have experience with softball. It was like the first sport I ever played. So I am 38 years old, which means I've been an athlete for almost 40 years. And I attribute returning from injuries to playing multiple sports, first of all, throughout that entire time frame. But as a kid, softball was really the first sport that I played, like t-ball with my brother when I was really little, and then on to softball. Did some catching, was mostly a first baseman. And I have like a really vivid memory of throwing a ball from right field to home plate when I was like 8 years old. And who knows what the size of the field was, how far out in the outfield I was, but it was just this moment of, I put a lot of power into that and I put it where I needed to go, and that felt cool. So from there, did a lot of other stuff, eventually got really scared of batting and was still a really good first baseman, but there were a lot of other factors that pushed me into individual sport as well.
Yeah, definitely having those crow hops from the outfield translates nicely to a good penultimate for sure. So what led to you kind of choosing javelin down the road, and what was your path with other sports and other events leading up to solely focusing on javelin?
I played everything. So I also did a little bit of pitching in softball, but soccer, basketball, volleyball. I refused to dive on the floor in volleyball, so that didn't last very long. A lot of other team sports. I had a lot of experiences as a woman in her teen years, like with drama on teams that pushed me into individual sport. But the other individual sport that I really, really love is swimming. So that's very much where like my soul sisters are from high school teams. Like fall was swimming season, winter basketball in Washington State where I grew up, and then something else in the spring. So I found javelin my freshman year of high school in Washington because like Connecticut, we have it in high school. One of, when I was growing up, I think 13 states that had it in the U.S., and now it's like 22, which is wonderful. But just so happened to have the opportunity to throw the rubber tip javelin in high school and have a geometry teacher who was the head track coach who knew that I didn't have a spring sport lined up, like after I had quit softball, and was open to stuff. Like he knew I was an athlete. He didn't necessarily know about my outfield story, but he thought, why not throw the javelin, Kara? And since he was so specific, like literally in class, he said, Kara, you should try the javelin. I was like, I don't know what that is, but I don't have anything else to do, and I'm just an athlete, so why not? Let's try. And my first meet ever, I would have won the varsity if they'd put me in varsity, but I was in JV like 10 days into my javelin career and kind of went from there.
Nice. Yeah, those softball throws definitely helped with you with that the JV record right there. In the baseball world, we see a lot of early specialization. I think gymnastics is also another one that people have to start young, and they're kind of like, it's a lot of money incentive involved as well, like to stay in a travel program year round of doing one sport. What would be some advice to like either kids listening to this or parents of how important like long-term athletic development is to like get exposure to multiple sports.
I think that's something I talk about all the time when I go to schools and stuff is like early specialization helps you maybe get better at that sport and then get injured and not stick with it. Plus, it's expensive. Like one of my favorite things about my Olympic javelin career is that I started my Olympic sport in high school in a public school system. And that's not what most people are doing. They're trying to go club as soon as they possibly can, which isn't my story. And there's so many more people, especially in niche sports, that are sick of something else and then try something really weird at a little bit older age and really, really excel in it. So that's exactly what happened to me and what I want people to understand. I think the reason that there was drama on my teams, the reason that I saw myself kind of separating from the systems that other people were following around me is that early specialization. Like, one of the most traumatic team experiences that I ever had was trying out for an elite soccer team with a friend who eventually went to school for soccer, went to college for soccer. I didn't make the team, but she did. And then in the postseason, they asked me to just like come and be a body at practice. But what happened is in the playoffs, they put me in goal for some reason. Like I tried out as a goalkeeper, but not made it. So then we're in like a elimination game in a tournament and I get scored on because I hadn't grown yet. And every girl on that team blamed me for that result, which was the worst experience of my athletic career. Like, I'm going to say, including every time I failed as a javelin thrower. Just socially, like, that sucked at a 12-year-old level, like, to be blamed for the team's failure. And I knew I didn't deserve it, and I had a mom who supported me in that. Like, their blame was misplaced. The coach shouldn't have put me in that position. Like, I understood all of that really quickly. But they cared so much about the result because it was the only thing that they were doing. And I got to go take out my frustrations, like on the treadmill getting ready for basketball season. It was fine. And so it's just like emotional regulation as well as physical development is a huge reason that I highly, highly recommend parents and kids try absolutely everything. Don't take it so seriously.
Yeah, I can always tell when kids just play baseball growing up because they're generally like the least athletic out of all of them, especially if all they do is pitch. Like we got kids saying that they're pitcher onlys, like POs, at like 14. Like you can't, like you're losing all like years of just getting athletic. Like you're limiting yourself to just throwing a ball. Like there's so much more that goes into it. So I try to stress that as much as I can, but I'm glad you're also on the same boat.
Yeah, 100%. And from a health perspective, like I did not start getting significantly injured until I was just a javelin thrower in college.
Yeah. Why do you think that is? Just because of the over tear on like, or the overuse on like the UCL and the shoulder and the back and the hip, just doing the same motion over and over again?
Doing the same motion over and over again, feeling like quantity was better than quality, and not for any reason other than I didn't understand the quality. Like I wasn't well versed enough in technique to do it correctly, and I'd only ever known work hard in other sports, so I didn't quite have the understanding to like fine tune what that hard work was. And then unilateral use of your body, like imbalances everywhere that you also don't understand if you're really young and just kind of learning how to use your body in a specific way.
Yeah, that's actually really interesting that you talked about the unilateral stability, because we talked about that in our last episode with Kevin Foster from Javelin Anatomy, talking about just like training a little bit in the bilateral stance versus the unilateral stance, and also just like how that correlates to throwing a little bit more. And we talked on the point of like how training overall should target like those little muscles and joints and parts of your body that tend to see that overuse, and how learning how to throw at that sub-maximal level is so helpful for the early parts of the off season so that you don't run into a lot of those overuse injuries down the road. And I feel like a lot of the younger throwers don't quite understand sub-maximal throwing, like for true technique yet. And it's either they're going 0% or they're going 100%. And so, you know, having that ability to be in tune with your body and stay healthy and learn how to train at sub-maximal levels is so important.
For sure. And I think like To some extent, everyone has to fail in that way. Like, a coach can tell you all that they want, that you need to not give your best effort on this, like, back extension, forward 4K shot put throw, right? Like, they can say that, but at 18 years old, 19 years old, you're going to try as hard as you possibly can. And so there's some version of not being able to avoid those kinds of injuries. Like, you have to push your body to a place that you haven't pushed it before when you're a collegiate athlete, when you're on scholarship, when you're trying to do your best for this school that believes in you. And I definitely fell into that category. Like, I had a coach who for sure was saying those things, like, chill, calm down, don't go so crazy. And I was not ready to listen until I broke through that barrier and had those injuries. And that's okay too, because you learn so much about yourself when you get injured and on the comeback. And I had fantastic physical therapist support at Purdue as well. I will also caveat that I didn't get injured until I was just a javelin thrower, but my first significant injury in college was actually breaking my right arm playing football with my friends at Thanksgiving.
Wow.
Oops.
Oops.
Yeah, that's not good.
I forget about it all the time. There's been like so many other ones.
Yeah, the extracurricular activity injuries are always the hardest to explain to your coach, for sure.
And it was at Thanksgiving, so right before my first semester finals, like my first ever college finals, and I was in design programs, so I had to like draw and use a mouse and like use design like computer programs for my finals and all of this stuff. And it was just such an example for the entire athletic department. Like, do not do what Kara did.
We had a baseball guy in high school our senior year. He broke his leg playing Pokemon Go because he like jumped off like a ledge at like a cemetery, because apparently the cemetery is where all the good Pokemon are. I don't know. But he was our captain starting center fielder, and he broke his leg right before the season started.
That's hysterical and so sad. And I'm sure he was fine, and it's a really good story now. But was it even a good Pokemon? I don't play, but Charizard is a word.
I don't even know.
That
I
is in
definitely
Pokemon.
wasn't worth it.
Like, maybe.
That is a Pokemon. Yes, that's a good one. That would have been worth it, I think.
But yeah, those dumb injuries are just as important for learning as the ones that are actually happening in your sport. And I PR'd in my first meet back from that injury and got to do a lot of like opposite side training. So cool experience, terrible thing to have to call my coach. Like, I waited 6 probably hours after getting x-rays, after knowing what the diagnosis was. I didn't need surgery. I didn't even ever have a cast. It was just a waiting game. And still broke down crying like when he answered the phone before I could even get the words out that I broke my arm.
Oh, jeez. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So you mentioned offside training a little bit. Is that something that you ever use when you're healthy as well, or do you only use that when you're injured?
I am not a javelin thrower who ever prioritized offside training whatsoever. I would say, yes, it was helpful at certain points, probably early in my career, to develop those neural pathways. Like, when you have to use your left arm to throw if you're right-handed, it just forces you into sequencing the positions in ways that you forget to on your throwing side. Like, you don't have habits on your opposite side, so that's why you do it, right? And I know that you guys know that, but maybe everybody else doesn't. But I tore my ACL enough times that it became not a good thing for me to do in terms of the valgus, internal rotation of my left leg, and safety. And so I did much more like external rotation releases, like bent and straight arm, to kind of get the posterior chain of my back going on the opposite side, but not as much like javelin technique specific throwing. So still did it, but maybe with a med ball or a ball, but not necessarily with a unilateral ball in a throwing sequence, more so in a like training kind of way.
Yeah, we utilize that stuff, specifically with med balls, like med ball, scoop toss, shot put, like any type of variation. More so in season, since they're just getting a lot of repetitions on their natural side. If they're righty, they're going to be swinging right-handed. They're usually tend to be throwing righty as well. We have the off cases that they bat lefty, throw righty, or vice versa. But like in season, we don't really need to add more volume to like their rotation on their dominant side. So we might just do the offside just to hopefully try to balance them out a little bit. So
I was listening to your episode with Dane Miller from Garage Strength, and you had mentioned a lot of how, you had a very long career. With that came, you started in high school, you went to college, and then you went professional. So that's at least 3 coaches right there for most people, right? So talk a little bit about your transition from coach to coach and what you learned with each different coach and what they taught you from a training perspective, a technique perspective, and maybe even if you want to touch upon the mental perspective as well.
I love this question. I have had wonderful coaches at every stage of my career, and I realize how fortunate I am to say that. My high school coach was a javelin thrower like at the high school level in North Dakota. So that was rare, first of all, for there to be somebody at my high school that had some knowledge of javelin, right? Especially in the early 2000s. Like I graduated from high school in '04. So great experience, but I would say the thing that I learned from him was some poor right leg mechanics habits, like not stuff that definitely followed me like technically through a lot of years of my career. And that's not his fault. It's like what he knew and what I took from what he knew. But mostly so much fun at practice. Like I had swam in the fall, played basketball in the winter, and I just loved, even though it was Washington in the spring and raining all the time, being outside with people that were like me, like this really strange thing that was new and I could grow in and I had complete control over. And that coach like very much encouraged the individuality of how we threw and the low pressureness of it. Like it was a group setting. It's this really weird thing that we're all doing, that we're all interested in for different reasons, but we can just enjoy ourselves. So establishing that just new, novel, cool, different thing is the huge pro that I kind of took away from that experience. Yeah, and better technical ideas than other people get at the high school level. So my high school PR was like 159.7.
So you pretty much just kind of, have fun with the sport, learn a little bit about the technique, but mostly just increase buy-in and see if you want to keep doing it at the high school level.
Yeah, and some really good drills. Like I said, he had more javelin knowledge than a lot of other high school javelin coaches, which is something I really care about, empowering people these days. That's why I'm a big supporter of Jack Javelin.
Shout out Jack Javelin.
Yeah, it was really fun, but there was also a level of like very hard work. He was one of the football coaches, so there was like a lot of hose drags all the way across the football field, like technique stuff that was also fitness that I really enjoyed. Like I was, sadistically, I cared about suicides in basketball. Like I tried really hard. I just always had this like, my husband likes to ask who hurt me because I just enjoy hard work and I kind of drive myself into the ground. And so that coach very much saw that, encouraged it in healthy ways that actually applied to javelin. So lots of like physicality and strength-based stuff without it being actual strength. Like I did not lift a weight until I went to college. It was all resisted like footwork and arm positioning stuff. Like I remember so clearly the very specific fatigue that happens in your shoulder as a javelin thrower when you're learning where to hold the javelin and how to control it. So that was a really, really good base leading to college. College coach, Rodney Zudovic, just huge impact on my life in general. I got to have pizza with him at trials this year and just catch up after 20 years of knowing him and see what he's doing in his athletes' careers. He's at Notre Dame now as an assistant coach, and that is the huge thing that he brought to my career and all of his athletes. Like we all loved him so much. He was the pole vault coach, multis, hurdles, and javelin. So he was separate from the heavy throws coach, right? And I love that. And I know that, Dan is the javelin coach. Like I fully support that kind of division of labor in throws programs in colleges, in the NCAA, at any division level. Like that was a benefit that I did not see when I was going to college, and it's still something that I think about and I'm so grateful for, because all I was really going there for was that he was holistically supportive of his athletes. There was a great group of women to train with, and the history of javelin at Purdue was really strong. So the school record at the time was the American record when it was set. And I looked myself in the mirror and I was like, if I want to be great, like, and be the school record holder, I will be a great javelin thrower if that happens. And this coach, like, will support me as a human being in doing that. He was also somebody, because his background is multis and hurdles, who was very open and honest about learning the process together. So I loved that aspect of like being able to have input on what was going on. And kind of the biggest example of that was hurting my back really badly. I missed the 2007 season with an L5 stress fracture. They actually had me throw the weight during the indoor season the year before that, and it hurt my elbow. So I was like, I'm out. I'm a javelin thrower. And then that year, I made it all the way through the season, but I was throwing the 20-pound weight with my lumbar spine. I just didn't know. Like, I just had no idea how to control the core in the way that I needed to. And I simply wasn't strong enough. Like, there were 5 throwers on my team that were throwing the weight further. Like, there's no reason I should have been doing that. And I was trying to keep up with javelin training. So just simple overuse. Therefore, Boston overlap brace, immobilization of my back for about 8 months before I could come back. Yeah, wild. But a lot of, like, core learning, learning to take into where does mobility come from in the javelin, thoracic spine, shoulder, rather than where I was trying to put it. And we learned that together. And the next season, I made my first Olympic team. So Coach Dudewick, just a wonderful human.
That's like a really cool story, too, because you're talking about how you and your coach kind of refined the process together throughout college. And that's, I don't know if you know me and Jordan's story, but, you know, I was 22 when I started coaching Jordan, and I was on the team with him. And so he's seen, obviously, me from the start because he's the first athlete that I ever really coached. So it's been a process of, you know, just getting him to like the sport more and quitting football, and like us just year by year taking it a little bit more seriously, getting a little bit more specific with the drills and all that type of stuff. So you definitely see how, you know, when you and your coach are working together collaboratively to work towards that goal and just be honest and open about the process of like, I might not have all these answers, but I will do everything I can to find them. It's just really cool that you had that experience as well, because that's extremely similar to what I'm going through as well.
That's amazing. I'm proud of you. Super cool. You're welcome. And like, yeah, Coach Dudewick, I think he had a birthday recently and he would never tell us how old he was. So for all I know, he was 23 at the time. Like, his kids were born when I was like a freshman, and I think junior, or I think their second kid was born when I was a freshman in high school. So, yeah, that's such a cool relationship that you'll have. Like, when I met you guys in New York, I was like, oh, I didn't even know that Jordan Davis's coach was Jack Javelin. Like, that's super cool. And
I wasn't posting them enough.
Now you've learned your lesson. But like the next 10 years or more, like, you just have this such cool opportunity to be great together. And that's like definitely a trend like throughout my career with coaches as well, because it's about the relationship. It's not about the result. Like, there's so much power in that, and he'll throw farther as a result of your relationship. Like, I just love that. Excited to witness it. Yeah, like the Zudowick children were like at my bachelorette party in Telluride, and they were like 13 and 15, and I was like, I have 2 margaritas. Like, what are we doing? Why did you bring your kids to this party? But that's like the relationship. Like, it's just funny, and he did it on purpose, and it just makes me laugh. Post-collegiate, one of the amazing things about Coach Zudowick as well, and this isn't always the case, is he empowered me to leave. Like, he knew when he had done what he could do for me, and he had this collegiate job, right? And he was going to maybe go somewhere else, and who knew like how I fit into that. Plus, we had grown as much as we could together, and as someone entering into the professional realm, how do I fund this dream? So I had the opportunity to move to Chula Vista, California, to the Olympic and Paralympic Training Center at the time, and lived there for 3 years. My now husband was throwing the discus and shot put, and moved there as well. So we got to like live in these dorms separately with people who had the same dream, and work with the built-in coach there, whose name is Ty Savan. And one of the biggest benefits, and somebody who helped me translate Ty for a lot of years, is my training partner at the time, Mike Hazel. 84-meter javelin thrower, I think top 10 all time still. If Jordan is, Mike is.
Yeah, because Jordan's number 6 at 84.40. So I think Mike is one behind him.
Okay, that sounds right. It's like 84.32 or something like that. So Ty just brought like so much more specific javelin knowledge to my world, and that goes into strength and conditioning as well. So you talked about bilateral versus unilateral training. I did not squat for like 2 years after college. Like it had been very kind of typical. I'd work in with like the freshman girl throwers, right? As a senior or super senior javelin thrower at Purdue, like on 225 squat sets, like because I was at their level. But getting to the post-collegiate realm, like it was more specific strength, more gymnastics, more javelin stuff. And I had never experienced that before in the weight room, like kind of across all of that training, plus just having a little bit of an idea about the legs and how I could like set my lower half up better for a throw meant that I had the breakout season of my life in 2010, like of anybody's lives. And I kind of looked straight in the face, like, people usually fail right after they graduate from college. I don't want to be that person. How can I be the best I've ever been? And Mike, my training partner, was a huge part of that because he's somebody who's very creative in the weight room, in drills, in what can I like drag around or swing around my head to get specific lat flexibility. And he taught me a lot within the construct of what Ty was saying technically about how to apply those principles, like in my own way, in a way that made sense to my brain. And that started with understanding Mike's brain, which was a big challenge, but one that I rose to. So yeah, Ty was my coach for a long time.
And then after him, did you start working with your husband, or was there someone in between as well?
Someone in between. So Dana Lyon of the U.S. Air Force Academy, she threw for the Air Force Academy when I was at Purdue. So she's 5'2". Her PR is 59.97, like pound for pound best women's javelin thrower in the U.S. history, 100%. And she had separated from the military like the summer of 2017 when I went to London World Championships and didn't make the final again. Like I'd made one final at a major championship in, I think, 5 or 6 tries at that point, and I was like, I'm so sick of this result. Like I need something different. I had been working remotely with Ty for 4 at least years at that point and not feeling like I was going anywhere. Like I look back and I'm like, why didn't I switch earlier? I didn't give myself the chance that I deserved. But I also am not somebody to jump ship. Like he's the person that got me to my first American record. Like, of course I'm going to stick it out. But because Dana was in Colorado Springs where I live, I've known her since 2004 when we were both at Olympic trials in Sacramento. And she was like at the meet that my husband and I met at, and basically a wing woman, like pushing us together. Like, this is somebody that I want to spend time with, who I respect. And if she can teach me at 5'2" what she did, I will be at 6 feet tall, unstoppable. Like, that's what I want. How do I actually use my whole body to throw the javelin? Because you had to. And so I truly felt like to that point, I had thrown with 50% of my body, like with my left leg and my right arm, and that's it. And she very much taught me how to rotate my hip around my block or through my block, be patient, like what the angles should be with the javelin compared to like the bottom half of my right leg. And just so many details that I never had to think about because I have levers and she didn't. So she did. And it was just like, it was such a fabulous experience. Plus, she's my very good friend who I got to travel the world with and go paddleboarding with Barbara Spatakova in Prague and just like live while doing really well. And it's just like what you and Jordan are going to experience. Dan.
Circling back to your opportunity to work with, you said Ty remotely. So that was, you were working with someone remotely in, what is that, 2010?
No, Chula Vista in person with Ty from 2009 to 2012, and then 2012 to 2017, I was working remotely with him.
Okay, so what did that look like, remote training 2012 to 2017? Like,
luckily, I've had the same strength coach since 2009. So Jamie Myers of the USOPC is my brother. Like, he's the best. He knows me really well. He had an eye on all of the training that Ty wrote. But if I ever didn't hear back from Ty, Jamie had my back. If I ever was somewhere that, all these coaches at some point have different jobs to take care of. Like, I am not their primary responsibility. So I'm not an athlete who's ever been like, you didn't write me back. Like, you must. Like, that's not real. I'm not paying you actually. Like, there's just this whole convoluted way that the track and field professional world works, that you have to come to it with some understanding as a professional athlete, because you're not your coach's priority for the most part. Like, you have a collegiate coaching job. You're going to do your best for your post-collegiate athletes, but that's not your top priority. So I always understood that. So with Ty, it was send videos, hear back a couple days later, like be conscientious about taking those videos and getting them to this person, and then kind of going from there. But sort of the straw that broke the camel's back was like I wasn't willing to be demanding, and I stopped, like the communication just wasn't there for that kind of last couple years, and I needed more. I needed eyes if I was going to improve. Like I said, I hadn't objectively like made a difference in a while. And I got really close to my first American record in 2015 after my first ACL surgery, but just wasn't consistent. Like, didn't really have a firm grasp on technically what I could lean on to succeed when the pressure was on, and needed somebody in person to be able to say that to me. So that's the shift to Dana. But that was a shift of technical coaching, and Jamie took over all of my programming. So then he was involved in all of the volume of throwing, intensity versus not intensity, like length of approach, all of that stuff. So Jamie then scripted all of the training, including the weight room.
Cool. So when you were, throughout all this time, when you were in Chula Vista, did you have another female javelin professional training partner, or were they just throwers in general that you were with?
There would randomly be people showing up. One of my favorite stories is actually Mika Ingberg. She threw, I think, 64 high, a Finnish kind of legend javelin thrower. She came to Chula Vista the first year that we lived there, and then tore her subscap benching, like, completely.
Carrie, you gotta be careful with my audience right now. Don't get my people afraid of bench press.
No, and I mean, the other story will, like, kind of remedy this, because she was a little bit older. Like, it happens. Like, you got to push the boundaries. Like, injuries are things that you can learn from. But Mike, like, it was going to be her last season anyway, so I bought javelins from her. Like, I purchased the javelins that she'd bought so she didn't have to fly them home. And then she's been such a fun friend, like, ever since that day. Goldie Sayers came on training camps, but one of my favorite stories was Christina Obergfol. I had, like, PR'd in bench in 2010, and we were at this barbecue at Andreas Thorkeldson's house, like in Chula Vista, and I was so excited about my PR and bench because it was like 92 kilos for one. Like, I'm so pumped, and I told Christina about it, and she and Boris are standing there, and she was like, how much did you bench? And I said 92, and she laughed at me, like laughed right in my face. Like, so embarrassing.
Andreas had a monster bench press. It's like 400 pounds. And he wasn't a big guy either. I mean, he was big, but like lean.
He's bigger than you think he is, for sure. But he purchased a bench, like a really nice bench for the Chula Vista weight room, because the benches there sucked for him. Like, he wanted a better system. So he bought equipment with Norwegian Federation money to live in the Chula Vista weight room.
That's so funny. That's something that I could definitely see us doing. It's like, if they don't have what we need, just find a way to get it done. We need a bench.
need a brand new weight room.
Yeah. Well, and like, I do that at UCCS. I purchased equipment so that they could throw indoors, like the indoor javelins and a net and the bungees and like all the equipment, to make sure it's all above board, because contribute to the place you're training 100% for yourself and for others.
You got to talk about your husband next, too.
I never had, like, to answer your question, a like woman as a training partner. Mike Hazel was my primary training partner, but I love the community of javelin. So I got to train with Andreas. I got to train in Offenburg with Johannes. I got to train with Neeraj Chopra in 2022. Like, Ariana Ince is one of my very good friends, and we've thrown together a lot. So, like, I love the individuality of training and being able to like fully focus on what I'm doing, and my transition but then to test yourself against others, right? Like, man or woman, like, what technically are we doing that's similar? What are our technical goals, like, in this session? And how can I watch what you're doing and tweak something for me, which was absolutely a light bulb moment that I had with both Johannes and Neeraj in two very different ways. But that's very technical, so I don't know how much you want to get into it. But that individuality, like, that knowing myself over a long period of time and wanting to really, really be able to fully focus like on each and every throw, celebrate it, et cetera, led me to working with my husband, because I have always been really coachable and had input at every stage, like especially with Dana. She could, we would like talk about a technical thing at practice and then go have dinner and talk about it more and argue healthily and move on. And maybe it was me that was right, maybe it was her, but I just needed to be able to have the space to make my own decisions in ways that I had never been able to with other people. Plus, Russ had told me that, he'd had really good ideas for a long time. I was just ready to listen to them. And after Tokyo in 2021, I was 11 months post-op my second ACL in Tokyo, like at my fourth Olympic Games, the one that I had said would be my last. And I still didn't make the final. Like physically, I was ready to make the final, probably, but mentally, it's 11 months post-op. Like you're still within a year of ACL number 2. And I was like 15th, but didn't quite get it done. And that devastation, like, was different than the other stuff. Like I definitely felt peace in the closing ceremony. Like I knew that I didn't need anything more out of my Olympic experience, especially if it was going to be this same feeling. But I went to Europe. I'm in Germany, like in this Airbnb. It's raining the whole time. I can't get into any competitions because I'm 35 and I didn't do well at the Olympics. And I'm just sad. And I was talking to Russ on the phone and he was like, well, what if I come with you next year? Like just for fun. And I was like, that sounds great. Like we used to travel the world together. We were athletes together for 10 years and we would like live in Germany and have champagne and cheese after every practice. Like that's just the experience of it. And the world travel is the reason that I love this opportunity and I like to do my best. Right. And so he said that and I thought about it for the next week that I was there by myself. And I came home and stood in the kitchen and I was like, I know who I want to coach me next year, like for my last season. And he looks at me and he goes, me too. I really want to be your coach. So it was just this really, really cool, like, this is how we can bookend this athletic part of our lives and do it together and like really celebrate every moment. And that meant that I got the perfect mixture of like solo throwing sessions and time with somebody who had known me the longest of any coach that I ever worked with. So it was such a blast. And it was a really fun marriage experience to disagree at practice, take the drive home to like listen to a podcast or music or whatever, and then revisit it again over dinner, just like with Dana, but with so many more touch points because you're spending more time with this person. And it was so fun to consciously enjoy every moment of like what I said was my last season and know that this person like loved me unconditionally. Like he did not care how far I threw the javelin. He just wanted to be a part of it.
Yeah. At what point in your professional career does like the technique stuff and the strength and conditioning stuff, like what point does that take the back seat to then just wanting a coach to just have a really good relationship with and almost tap into more of like the mental, holistic, and just kind of relaxation aspect of throwing javelin? Like, at what point do you make that transition?
I think for me, that was happening before I hurt my knee the second time, for sure. I thought I would finish out my career with Dana. I know that she felt that way too. Like that was a really, really hard conversation to have, to say, you did nothing wrong. I just have been through this traumatic thing of a second ACL tear and you were there for me, but like I need to try this with my husband. Like you showed me what it's like to travel the world with a loved one. Thank you. And I'm sorry, like I need to leave. Like this is not your fault. I appreciate you, all of that stuff. So we were already doing that. Like we had gone paddleboarding, Dana and I, with Barbara Spatakova the day that she found out that she won Daegu gold in 2011, like the day that they stripped Maria Bakumova's medal from her due to retroactive drug testing. So she was like late to paddleboarding and she sent me a message. She's like, Kara, I will be late. I won Daegu. And I was like, what does this mean? It's so cryptic. And then we just like paddleboarded on the river in Prague, like the coolest thing ever. And just so many more other examples. Like that's the coolest one. But Dana and I like having ramen, any little moment of friendship across the world, like that enjoyment of the javelin was already happening. But it came along with it's fun to be good at something, even as arbitrary as javelin. Like, what do you care about? Be great at it. The end. So doing that together is really what opened the door for me to make the technical changes that I needed to have the international results that I wanted. Because before 2022 even, she was with me at the Zurich Diamond League final in 2018 when I got third, finally. Like, I'd been to so many of the major competitions and been middle of the pack always. And then finally got this job done. And that led into 2019 when we changed my grip. We talked about it. She let me figure that out for a while, and then it wasn't working. So I went straight back to what I knew, immediately through 64.98 and had the series of my life at Pan Am's. Won the match that year with 364 plus meter throws, and then got fifth at World Championships, the best finish by an American to that point. And then COVID and all of that stuff. But I threw 64.44 in COVID, in 2020, the day that I tore my ACL, on that throw is when I threw, or when I hurt my knee. But we were already doing that, enjoying it, enjoying the process, loving the javelin just to love the javelin, but also part of the fun is to challenge yourself to get better. And that's exactly what happened in 2022. But exactly what you said, the strength was there, the specific strength was there. I like to joke that I gained weight over my career just in each joint in my body, 1 pound of stability in a wrist, in an elbow, in a shoulder, in a knee, just everywhere. I'm more dynamic, I'm more elastic, I'm more stable. And that doesn't mean that I've changed significantly. I fit into high school jeans, but I am much heavier than I was in high school. And that is all the rehab, all the detail. So that was there. And I can handle little technical changes and little kinesthetic awareness, edits to what we're doing to make a massive difference in distance.
Kinesthetic awareness was my word of the week last week.
Ooh.
You used it a lot.
I did.
I did.
Know what it means
I did not see that. So
Yeah, I know
just
what
we're now you know what it means. Yeah.
Yeah. So you were talking a lot about your training technique, rehab, especially with the 2 ACLs and the back and the injuries. Talk a little bit about just the transformation in the strength conditioning world, the rehab world, from when you started in 2004 to now, 20 years later. How did that evolve, and how did you go about your training, rehab, mobility? How did everything just kind of transform as everything was coming out?
Evolution of strength and conditioning over my career. I don't know that, technology is different, right? Jamie makes fun of me sometimes still for this tantrum that I threw regarding tendo units. Because when we moved to Colorado Springs, he was also still in California. And so he's like, how do I monitor your output, right? How I'm going to give you speeds to shoot for, all of that stuff, power output. And so every time it's an old tendo unit with a string from the mat on the floor, and you have to attach it to the bar. And I just got so sick of attaching this thing to the bar. It was 2 years of using a tendo for almost every lift I ever did. And one day I was like, Jamie, I'm done with that thing. I cannot. And he told Craig Kinsley and Sean Fury and Cyrus Hostetler in Chula Vista, they were training there, about this tantrum that I threw. And so next time I was there for a training camp, Craig looked me straight in the eye, and he picked up the tendo unit and put it on the bar, and he goes, that was so hard, Kara. Rude. So there were those technological things that could monitor my progress from afar that I just rejected repeatedly throughout my career. In the strength and conditioning world, what did I lift? Did it feel good? That's good enough for me. I'm not somebody that is going to adopt the technology, because I'm much more feel than needing to prove to myself that something is ready.
Yeah. You ever see in Sean Fury's garage, even now he has that TV, and he's got I don't know if it's the Tendo or what, but he uses a radar gun and all this stuff, and then he's showing it on his TV. This person did it at this speed and this velocity, and then it translated to this practice throw PR, and I'm just so much data. How do you keep up with that?
And how do you quiet your mind on the runway when you know all of that information about yourself? That's just not something that I could I could ever translate to performance. I'm not a practice thrower. So even measuring like distances in practice isn't something that was helpful to me. It was like more stressful than anything. Like the best practice of my life, I threw 64 meters before 2012 Olympic trials, and then I tore my ACL. Super useful, right? So yeah, technology in the weight room, kind of understanding of training programs and all of that stuff. Like I spent so much time rebuilding from zero in a lot of different injuries that I knew what worked, and Jamie knew what worked, and he knew when I felt good and when I didn't. And I'm like a really resilient athlete as well. I think women respond in a more resilient way to training, right? To stimulus. Like we kind of show back up and are ready to go. At least that's how I am. And that's how I know a lot of like women are in strength and conditioning, like can handle higher volume, all of that stuff. And so that was kind of always me. If we ever did any central nervous system testing, I was like fine the day after maximal stuff. And that just meant I could build back really well. Like I can see little victories each day and keep building on those, and had, thankfully really, really wonderful PTs to be able to do that too. But I think going from not so good of an understanding of Olympic lifts to where I am now, like I'm not that proficient, I'm not that strong, but I understand the point of them. Like it's joint sequencing, hip drive, like the pull is the most important part of a snatch or a clean, not the catch. And that took a long time, but not as long as it takes some other people. And going from bilateral movements to unilateral movements, like one of my favorite specific javelin things is just a quarter squat off pins, concentric only, but in a split. And like doing reps for 6 at 200 kilos within a year of ACL surgery, like made me so confident that I could go to Olympic trials and make my 4th Olympic team. And that was an evolution over many years with the same coach, understanding like where I'd been and where I needed to go confidence-wise as well as physically.
Yeah, I love that. That's a very similar way, I guess, that we kind of approach training too. Because I don't like using percentages and stuff with my athletes. We pretty much just like we might have them there as a guide in certain blocks, but I think for the most part we try to go off of how you're feeling that day, because it's obviously hard to determine how the body's going to respond to a throwing session. And then the day after, you wrote 4 weeks ago that you have to hit 90% of like a max back squat for 3. And it's like, we just threw yesterday, and, you never know what's going to happen. So we just, take it with a grain of salt. So that was kind of like the strength and conditioning evolution. How have you seen javelin technique, the way it's been taught, evolve over the last 20 years?
I mean, I think that you're a huge part of why it's different. And I know that Kevin Foster also is too, but that's very new. So it did not change very much for a really long time. And I want to be a part of that. Like, I think that ways that I learned how to throw again after injury were making up really weird drills and being able to think about, and this speaks to strength and conditioning too as well, Brett. Like, I know that now, after following you for 2 days on Instagram, like the functional movements, like the rudiment hops, like the from the hip med ball into the wall, like forward throws, like rotational power development. What is the body doing in the sport? How do you train that? Like that's javelin. And that's like people looking at it objectively and saying, well, no, you're not stopping behind your block. Like it's a stride. It's a takeoff point for the javelin, and you have to treat it accordingly or you're going to tear your ACL. Like that's my thought process on the block. And it had to be after injury, but I see people being more critical thinkers about how the body's actually moving and then presenting it in ways that make more sense anatomically, fear-wise. Like I was so scared to hit a block after my first ACL. And then my second one, I was like, well, what's my leg doing? What did Johannes Vetter say? How could I apply that? And that's the big technical change that was super, super fun to do with Russ in 2022. So I think there's a long way to go still, but it is changing how the javelin is presented and how weird people are willing to be to learn the movements that they need to learn to feel positions and hold positions that they need to at the end of an approach.
Yeah. Definitely got to do a lot of spinal exploration, which could get a little weird at times.
Well, and that stuff I have not delved into. Like I do other weird kind of things that I don't share the weirdest ones, I don't think, but like yeah, I fully support those movements. Like you do you, 100%. I don't think I've ever done the same kind of spaghetti arm and spinal segmentation drills.
The spaghetti, we got it.
Gotta have the spaghetti arm.
But they are perhaps incorporated into stuff that I do, like in terms of the feeling, right, as an athlete. And I would love to like keep having those conversations to tell people that there isn't just one way to do it. There's not just one way to feel it. And feel free to explore on your own. Like, what does feel efficient? It's not stopping and then throwing the javelin. It's continuing to move like through the throw so that it's repeatable, right? And that was my big thing after my second knee is like, what positions can I hit without fear and then hit again?
Yeah, and I know that that's actually how we kind of started talking about getting you on the show, as you had commented on the solo episode I did where I was talking about the block and how having a perfectly straight block leg is overrated in my opinion. So you want to just emphasize that point a little more, a little less, give your thoughts on that.
The evidence of that episode being true is that my block leg was not straight after 2020, ever. Like I tried to make it straight, but it hurt really bad and it was scary. So that didn't happen anymore. And then I PR'd for the first time in 12 years.
Gotta find what works for you.
Yeah. So, and I've since come to understand that this is actually a Finnish way of thinking about the block is that like you have to drive the right knee through, knee up, toe up, the impulse. Like, so Johannes Vetter told me, I don't mind sharing this because now it's mine. I've shared it multiple times. So you give credit 3 times and then it's yours, right? Isn't that how it works?
Yeah. It works that way.
Like I saw the Altus tag on that Rudiment post, Brett, and I was like, yeah, Altus, like that's where my coach got it like 15 years ago. Like that's hilarious. So in the impulse, Johannes told me in 2021, he says, you jump off the left leg. I'm a javelin thrower. I'm not the best athlete. Like I tried really hard, but my jumping ability is non-existent. And so the jump, like the permission to try to jump as hard as I could, like cover as much ground as I possibly could in the impulse was actually very freeing in terms of what I thought I was supposed to do control-wise through the impulse to that point. Jump off the left leg, weight on the right leg. Again, permission to like have back foot contact, keep that leg bent, like load up the right leg, the right side, but allow it to stay on the ground for longer than the fast right to left situation that's happening. And then posterior chain activation of the block leg, like a pulling back and pushing down of that left leg so that it's not just quad firing and stopping, but a push-pull of the right and left legs to springboard the javelin out of your hand. So it's a takeoff from the long jump board. It's a penultimate like step in the pole vault before you take off onto the pole. It's a launching, like that's why people launch themselves over their left leg, because they are continuing to move forward. You still have to like stop to a degree your left leg to accelerate the right side around it and create stretch reflex through your core and into your upper body, but you have to keep going that way to throw the javelin. So you must like squeeze those legs together. And for me, that permission was just using half of my leg that I had never even thought about using and creating stability through the hip as well to be able to do that. So then the pressure that you're applying is distributed evenly between both feet instead of just relying on the straight left leg.
Wow. Putting a clinic on right now.
Did you learn something?
It's a lot of free game.
Yeah, it's a lot of free game.
Might have to start throwing the javelin now. I got all the inside scoop.
Yeah. So, you'd mentioned a little bit about, obviously you're extremely knowledgeable about the sport. You have a ton of experience. You mentioned about how you want to be part of that movement of, making the sport more popular, moving forward. So share with the audience, what do you want your legacy to be and how do you envision yourself doing that going forward, whether it be in-person camps or through social media?
I have hosted a camp for the last 2 summers at Colorado State University. So kind of my little foray back into competing this year. I competed twice. I threw 63.22, which was almost the 64-meter Olympic standard, and like just barely missed a 5th Olympic team. I enjoy that camp a lot. I don't necessarily want to coach athletes. Like, as the athlete, people have the gift of coaching, right? I don't know that I don't have that gift, but I know the event really well through a lot of trial and error, and my legacy as an athlete is longevity. I stuck around for a long time through a lot of injuries, like learned a lot of different things about technique because I couldn't throw the same way and be successful. And that's something that I like to believe that I can apply to different athletes. Part of the huge success of this year is that I took a year off. I wondered if I had fully figured it out in 2022, and then to objectively throw far with minimal training, because I only trained 4 days a week for like 5 months at 38. And the training age is huge. Like, things snap back so quickly. It was super fun to like just tap into what my body knew and have that like kinesthetic awareness, like that knowledge of how do I actually feel good compared to being 36. Like, it's not that different, but it's just more accessible when you've already done the thing. I want to coach coaches. Like, I want to provide resources to people who have the gift of coaching that are specific to javelin so that people can understand the technique of it and start younger athletes off on a better foot than most American javelin throwers get to start on.
Wow. That's awesome. I love that.
And it would be mostly digital, right? Because that's how information is shared. A drills library is something I'm really interested in, because I'm like, when I PR'd for the first time in 12 years, when I finally set a new PB that also happened to be an American record in 2022, I hadn't analyzed my first American record, 66-67, in any detail because I was 24 when I set it. So I was like, that'll happen again immediately, right? Didn't happen for more than a decade. So when I threw 68.11, I sat Russ down and I made this Excel sheet of like, what did he see versus what did I feel in every phase of that throw? Like, before it even started, carry steps, withdraw, crossovers, impulse, block, release, follow through, like every single part of that throw. And so I have all of this information and all of these memories, and now in 2024, being able to tap into each phase being successful rather than the whole thing having to be successful and put that pressure on a practice throw. I'm just really excited to break drills down into those phases with the knowledge that I have about my own throw. And it is specific to me, but I have a lot of understanding of the way that other people have talked about it for 20 years, what words mean the same thing, and how I can like be a translator between coaches on technique. So, wait for that. Now that I've said it on your podcast, I'm actually going to do it.
You have to do it now.
You have to do it now. It's locked in. I'll be your first client. I'll sign up.
I have other ideas for us to work together.
I need some mentorship. I've been very open about not having all the answers, so it's always good to learn more, you know?
Yeah. Well, and I not to be too much of a fangirl, but you're either on the Jack Javelin train or you're going to miss it, is really where I stand.
You got to hop on now.
To say that being willing to like listen to other people's ideas, translate them in ways that will help other athletes. Like, it's not that other coaches are wrong. It's just that maybe they don't have the words to speak to more people. And that's where you come in. Like, I'm super impressed with what you're doing, and I'm really excited to be a part of it if I can.
Thank you.
Yeah. I forgot to tell you this though, but this is just funny because it happened today. 3 kids came in and did the wet noodle arm drill.
Oh no.
And they were like, we got this off of Jack Javelin. And then they would listen to the gap while they worked out. Yeah, it's getting a little crazy in the weight room now, but
yeah.
No, that's so fun. Well, and like, I started training again not to compete. I wanted to like film this video. It's a how-to video with Outperform Sports, which I'm excited about. It wasn't exactly like what my expectation was, which is why there's still so much room for like a lot more detail on drills. But I started training again because this is how I know my body feels good. And that speaks to, like, how do you be a better javelin thrower? You're a better athlete.
Yeah. I was just having that conversation with Jordan yesterday about how, when I was done with grad school at 23, I was like, oh, I'm not doing track anymore. I'm just going to bodybuild and be a power lifter and stuff. But I'll coach javelin. And it was like 5 months went by. And I was like, dude, this is boring. Like, I need to run. I need to jump. I need to do mobility. So, now, I don't throw as much anymore, but I still train the same way I did in college, just because it's like you said, that's how you feel best. And it's just, you want to keep that athleticism as long as you can.
100%. And, I did the math on if I could have gotten one more meet and gotten a world ranking and made the team, and it was very much within my reach. Like, I will not say out loud what I would have needed to throw at the meet that
Yeah.
But
yeah, you had it though.
And like, I'm so at peace. It's super fun because exactly what you said, like, this is how I feel good. This is what I have mastery over. And I want to keep tapping into that in my life. And like, if that's something that people can take away, the majority of emails that I get from people that want to throw the javelin are masters women, like women that grew up before Title IX, who didn't have a chance to play sports, who never heard of javelin before they were 55 years old. And like the rotational power, like the core control, lateral movement, like, isn't something that people do in regular life. And like, I threw yesterday because I love it. And I'm trying to look good in these videos that I want to shoot for the drills library, right? But like, I hadn't for a week and a half probably, and the last throwing session I had was like in the grass, and you just, like, my body needed to do that. There's different core muscles that happen. Like, you're gonna look better if you're a javelin thrower.
I feel the same way about sprinting.
Yeah.
Yeah, during like a speed class, you do all the drills. You're like,
you get juiced up.
I kind of want to get the lasers out right now.
Yeah. Explosive power. Gotta keep it. You gotta use it or you'll lose it. 100%.
All right. I think that wraps up. You got anything else?
No, Kara, thank you so much for coming on. Male or female, whoever's listening, I think they'll get a lot out of this in your story and what you have in the future. Like, I'm excited to see what you do with your coaching platform, and yeah, I'm just happy you got to talk tonight.
Me too. Well, thank you so much. And yeah, I have so many thoughts about training. So next time you want to talk, just let me know. Thanks, guys.
Thanks, Kara, for coming on.